Welcome to Audiobooks channel. No time to read. Let audiobooks read for you. Put on your headphones, close your eyes, and live every story. Where stories come to life, relax, listen, and enjoy. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Part 1: The Quiet Cottage. In a quiet valley, where the wind moved slower than time itself, there stood a small cottage. Not grand. Not remarkable. And yet, everyone knew it. Because if you carried something heavy, you came here. The door was always open. Not wide. Not inviting. Just open enough. Inside lived a man. An old man, with eyes that had seen more than they ever spoke. He was not powerful. Not in the way stories often describe. He did not summon storms. He did not command fire. But he listened. And somehow, that was enough. People came with broken things. Not objects. But moments. A farmer who had lost his crops. A mother who had lost sleep. A man who had lost the reason to wake up. And each time, the old man would nod gently. And say the same words. Come in. A pause. Tell me everything. And they did. Hours would pass. Sometimes silence. Sometimes tears. Sometimes nothing at all. And when they left, they were not fixed. But they were lighter. And in this valley, that mattered. But there was someone who did not understand. A young man. Living in the same house. Watching from the same door. The old man's son. Studio microphone part 2, the son who refused. The son believed in different things. Efficiency. Control. Reason. To him, pain was something to be solved. Quickly. Not listened to. Not carried. Certainly not shared. He watched the endless line of villagers with quiet frustration. They take too much, he said one evening. The old man looked up from his chair. Not surprised. Not offended. Do they? He asked gently. They take your time. Your energy. Your life, the son replied. The old man smiled. Softly. They leave something too. The son frowned. What could they possibly give? The old man didn't answer immediately. He simply looked toward the door, where a woman had just stepped out. Her shoulders lighter than before. Her breath steadier. Less weight, he said quietly. The son shook his head. That's not real. The old man chuckled softly. Not everything real can be measured. Years passed like this. The son never agreed. But he stayed. Because even if he didn't believe in his father's way, he had nowhere else to go. Until one morning, when the door did not open. Studio microphone part 3, the day silence came. It happened quietly. No storm. No warning. Just stillness. The old man sat in his chair. As he always did. But this time, he did not move. The son stood in the doorway. Waiting. Father? No answer. He stepped closer. Slowly. The room felt different. Not empty. But finished. And in that moment, he understood. There would be no more voices. No more stories. No more quiet conversations that lasted into the night. Just silence. Days passed. The villagers came. Knocked. Waited. But the door remained closed. The son did not answer. At first, it felt like relief. No interruptions. No expectations. No wait. Finally, Peace. Until the sound began. Clink. It was small. Barely noticeable. The son ignored it. Clink, clatter. He frowned. The sound came again. From the corner of the room. An old iron pot sat there. Blackened with age. Unremarkable. Except. It was moving. The son stepped closer. What is this? The pot trembled. Lightly. Then. It jumped. He stepped back. The pot hit the wooden floor with a dull thud. And from inside it came a sound. Not boiling. Not steam. Something else. A breath. A weak, fragile breath. The son froze. Because the sound was not mechanical. It was human. Another sound followed. A soft cry. A child. The room grew colder. The son's voice lowered. No. But the pot did not stop. It rattled again. Louder this time. The crying grew. Desperate. Real. And suddenly. He remembered. A woman had come days before. Holding a child. Burning with fever. He had turned her away. I am not my father, he had said. The crying inside the pot sharpened. The sound cut through the silence. And into something deeper. Something he could not ignore. He clenched his fists. I won't do this. The pot shook harder. The cries grew louder. Until finally. He shouted. Enough. Silence fell. For a moment. Everything stopped. Then slowly. The pot tilted forward. And from its dark opening. Came a single whisper. Help me. The son stood still. Because deep down. He already knew. This was not going to stop. Not until he did. And that night? For the first time in his life. He would step outside. Not to avoid others. But to face them. Part 4, the first step. The night air pressed gently against his skin. Not harsh. Not unforgiving. But unfamiliar. He stood at the doorway for a long time. The pot behind him. Restless. Clink. A soft reminder. Fine, he whispered. Not with kindness. Not yet. But with surrender. He stepped outside. The village was quiet. Lights dimmed. Doors closed. And yet. The sound guided him. The crying. Faint. Fragile. Real. Each step he took. The pot followed. Not leading. But refusing to let him stop. The house stood at the edge of the path. Small. Worn. The door barely held together. He hesitated. Then knocked. A weak voice answered. Who is it? He swallowed. It's me. A pause. Then. The door opened. Studio microphone part 5, The Child Who Waited. The woman stood there. Eyes heavy. Hands trembling. In her arms. The child. Still. Too still. You said you wouldn't come, she whispered. No anger. No accusation. Just truth. The pot behind him groaned softly. I was wrong, he said. The words felt strange. Unfamiliar. But necessary. Inside, the air was thick. Not with illness. But with waiting. He knelt beside the child. For a moment. He didn't move. Didn't cast a spell. Didn't reach for power. He simply looked. At the pale skin. The shallow breath. The quiet fear that filled the room. And something shifted. Not outside. Inside. He closed his eyes. And for the first time, he remembered not what his father did, but how he did it. Softly. He placed his hand over the child's chest. Not forcing. Not demanding. Just present. A warmth appeared. Gentle. Like morning light. The child stirred. A breath. Then another. Color returned. Slowly. Behind him. The pot fell silent. Studio microphone part 6, the sound that returned. He left quickly. Too quickly. Gratitude lingered behind him. But he did not turn back. He wasn't ready. For a moment, he thought it was over. The pot was quiet. Still. Until morning came. Clink. He froze. No. Not again. The sound returned. Different this time. A cough. Dry. Painful. He closed his eyes. I helped. The pot rattled harder. The cough deepened. Then. He coughed. He stepped back. Hand to his chest. Another cough followed. Sharp. Real. Understanding came slowly. But completely. I have to feel it, he whispered. The pot did not answer. It didn't need to. Studio microphone part 7, the borrowed pain. The road felt longer this time. He walked slower. Each breath heavier than the last. The coughing guided him. To a small hut near the fields. An old man sat outside. Bent. Weak. You shouldn't be here, the old man rasped. I have nothing left. The young man shook his head. I'm not here to take anything. He knelt. And again. He didn't rush. Didn't force. This time. He listened. To the breath. To the silence between words. To the life that still remained. The magic came differently now. Less controlled. More willing. The old man's breathing eased. And in that same moment, the pain in his own chest faded. The pot behind him. Silent again. Studio microphone part 8, the pattern of giving. Days passed. Then more. The pattern continued. A broken fence. A lost animal. A grieving widow. Each time. The pot spoke. And each time. He resisted. At first. But resistance grew tiring. Heavy. Exhausting. Helping. Did not. He noticed it slowly. After each act. The silence felt different. Not empty. Full. As if something unseen had shifted into place. He began to step out. Before the pot demanded it. Not always. But sometimes. And each time. The pot stayed quieter. Studio microphone part 9, the quiet change. One evening. He sat outside the cottage. The sky stretched wide above him. Soft. Endless. The pot rested beside him. Still. Is this what he felt? He asked quietly. No answer came. But the question remained. He thought of the people. Not their problems. Not their pain. But their faces. Their voices. Their small moments of relief. And for the first time, he did not feel burdened by them. He felt connected. The realization unsettled him. But not in a way he wanted to escape. In a way, he wanted to understand. Studio Microphone Part 10, The Choice to Care. The next morning. The pot did not move. No sound. No demand. No pain. Just silence. He waited. Minutes. Then longer. Nothing. He stood. Looked toward the door. Then back at the pot. So that's it, he whispered. No answer. He could stay. Ignore the world. Return to quiet. Or he could step outside. Without being forced. Without being pushed. Just because. The moment stretched. Then slowly. He reached for his cloak. Not because the pot demanded it. But because he chose it. And as he stepped out into the morning light, the pot remained still. For the first time. Completely silent. And in that silence, a new question began to form. If kindness is no longer forced, who are we? When we choose it. Part 11, The Weight That Stayed. The pot no longer moved. Days passed in quiet rhythm. The door opened. People came. Stories were told. And he listened. Just like before. Just like his father. But something remained. Not outside. Inside. A quiet heaviness. Not sharp enough to hurt. But constant enough. To never leave. At night, when the village slept. He felt it most. The echoes. The child's breath. The old man's cough. The silence of those who never spoke. He had helped them. He knew that. And yet, it did not feel complete. Why does it still feel like this? He whispered into the dark. The silence did not answer. But it listened. Studio Microphone Part 12, The Stranger Who Saw Too Much. The stranger arrived at dawn. Not tired. Not broken. But aware. He stood at the doorway without knocking. As if he already knew it would open. You carry too much, the stranger said. No greeting. No hesitation. The man frowned slightly. I only carry what is given. The stranger shook his head. No, he said quietly. You carry what should have been left behind. The words settled slowly. Uncomfortably. What do you mean? The man asked. The stranger stepped inside. Looked around. At the chair. At the door. At the place where the pot once stood. There is a place, he said. At the edge of the valley. A house that remembers. The man felt something tighten in his chest. Remembers what? The stranger met his eyes. Everything you didn't let go. Studio Microphone Part 13, The House That Waited. The path was unfamiliar. Though he had lived in the valley all his life. He had never walked this far. The air changed. Quieter. Heavier. No birds. No wind. Just stillness. And there stood the house. Not broken. Not abandoned. But untouched. The door opened slowly. Before he reached it, he stopped. For a moment, he considered turning back. But the weight inside him pulled him forward. He stepped inside. The door closed. Studio Microphone Part 14, The First Room. Darkness. Then. A sound. Soft. Familiar. A child crying. He turned. The room had changed. It was the same house. The same moment. The child lay in bed. Feverish. Afraid. Don't leave me, the child whispered. I didn't, he said quickly. I came back. I helped you. But the room did not change. Because this was not truth. This was memory. And memory does not follow what happened. It follows what was felt. Studio microphone part 15, the second room. The walls shifted. Another room formed. The old man. Sitting alone. Healthy. But quiet. You fixed my body, the old man said softly. But not my loneliness. The man stepped back. I didn't know. Exactly, the voice replied. The room faded. Studio microphone part 16, the endless rooms. More rooms appeared. One after another. A woman who smiled. But never spoke her grief. A child who laughed. But feared the night. A man who thanked him. But still felt lost. Each memory? Unfinished. Each moment? Half-healed. The man's breath grew heavier. I helped them, he whispered. But now? He wasn't sure. Studio microphone part 17, the truth of carrying. The house grew darker. Quieter. You listened, a voice said. But you carried. He turned. No one was there. You took their pain, the voice continued. And made it yours. I was helping, he said. Or avoiding, the voice replied. Silence. Because deep down, he understood. If he carried their pain, he never had to let them carry their own. Studio microphone part 18, the room of himself. The final room appeared. Empty. At first. Then. He saw it. Himself. Sitting alone. Tired. Heavy. Surrounded by echoes. Every voice. Every pain. Every memory. All inside him. This is me, he whispered. No, the voice replied. This is what you kept. Studio microphone part 19, learning to release. His breath trembled. I didn't want to forget them, he said. You were never meant to, the voice answered. Then why does it hurt? Because you held on to their pain. Instead of their strength. The words settled deeply. For the first time. He saw it clearly. He was not honoring them. He was holding them back. Slowly. He closed his eyes. I remember you, he whispered. But I will not carry what belongs to you. One by one. The voices softened. The rooms faded. Not erased. But lighter. Studio microphone part 20, the lightness returns. The door opened. Light poured in. He stepped outside. The valley stretched before him. Unchanged. And yet. Completely different. Because the weight was gone. Not the memories. But the burden. He took a breath. Deep. And for the first time. It felt like his own. But peace does not always come alone. Because somewhere in the silence, a new voice was waiting. Part 21, the perfect valley. The valley was quiet again. But this time, it felt different. Not gentle. Not natural. Perfect. Too perfect. No late-night knocks. No trembling voices. No stories waiting at the door. People smiled. But not too much. Spoke. But not too deeply. Lived. But only on the surface. The man stood at the doorway. Watching. What is this? He whispered. Because something inside him recognized it. Not peace. Something else. Studio microphone part 22, the voice returns. It came at night. Soft. Familiar. You've done well. He froze. Because he knew that voice. "Father," he whispered. The air did not move. But the voice continued. "The valley is at peace now. No pain. No suffering." His chest tightened. "Yes," he said slowly. "But it doesn't feel real." A pause. Then. "That is because you are still holding on." Studio microphone part 23, The Gentle Guidance. The voice returned again. And again. Always calm. Always certain. "They are better this way. No fear. No grief." He walked through the village. Watching. Everything worked. Perfectly. A child fell. But did not cry. A woman spoke. But did not feel. It was easier. Simpler. And slowly. He began to wonder. What if this was right? Studio microphone part 24, The Quiet People. Days passed. The silence deepened. People no longer came to the door. Because they no longer needed to. Their pain was gone. But so was something else. Their depth. Their warmth. Their life. He stood in the center of the village. Surrounded by calm. And felt alone. Studio microphone part 25, The False Peace. The voice spoke again. Closer this time. "You gave them this. A world without pain." He closed his eyes. "But also without feeling," he whispered. Silence. Then. "Pain is what hurt them. You removed it once. Why not remove it completely?" The idea lingered. Kindness. Without suffering. It sounded right. Until it didn't. Studio microphone part 26, The First Doubt. It happened in a moment. Small. Almost invisible. A child looked at him. Not crying. Not smiling. Just empty. "Do you feel okay?" he asked. The child tilted their head. "I don't feel anything." The words landed heavily. Because suddenly. He remembered. Feeling was never the problem. Losing it was. Studio microphone part 27, The Truth Breaks. That night. He stood alone. Waiting. The voice came. Stronger now. "You see now. This is peace." He shook his head slowly. "No. Silence. This is control." The air shifted. Darkened. "Does it matter?" the voice asked. And in that moment, everything became clear. His father. Never told. He listened. This voice. Did not. "You're not him," he said. The silence broke. Studio microphone part 28, The World Without Feeling. The illusion cracked. The valley changed. For just a moment. He saw the truth. People moved. But without presence. Spoke. But without meaning. Lived. But without choice. A world without pain. But also. Without life. The voice screamed now. "You will bring back their suffering." Tears filled his eyes. "Yes," he whispered. "And their joy." Studio microphone part 29, The Final Choice. The ground trembled. The silence resisted. The voice pushed harder. "You cannot undo this." But he no longer listened. Not to the voice. Not to fear. Only to something deeper. Choice. He closed his eyes. And let it go. Not fighting. Not holding. Releasing. Everything. Studio microphone part 30, The Return of Life ending. The valley breathed again. Not perfectly. Not quietly. But fully. A child laughed. Too loudly. A woman cried. Openly. An old man complained? Without shame. Life returned. Messy. Beautiful. The man stood at the doorway. Watching. Not fixing. Not controlling. Just present. A knock came. Soft. Uncertain. He opened the door. A young boy stood there. Eyes filled with confusion. Emotion. Life. I don't understand what I'm feeling, the boy said. The man smiled gently. Good, he said. That means it's yours.